Alright, good morning and welcome to another episode of Mr. Menera's Homeschool. So, as you can see, I have this number 15,474 and 854 thousandths. Okay, so first, I'm going to round this number to the nearest tens. So, if you remember the rules from class, I underline the tens place, I look next door, I circle that number, and I ask myself, is that number 5 or more, or is it 4 or less? It's a 3, and we know 3 is 4 or less, so it's less than 4, which means we let this guy rest. So it becomes 15,407. So the circle is there to remind me that it turns into a 0, and everything to the right turns into a 0. So this number, rounded to the nearest tens, becomes 15,470. Now, in 4th grade, you not only need to know how to round whole numbers, you also have to know how to round decimals, which is the same thing, follows the same rules. You just got to remember your decimal place values. So we did to the tens, now we're going to do to the tenths. So remember, if it ends in THS, it's going to be a decimal place value. And right after the decimal comes the tenths place. So I underline the tenths place. I look next door, I circle that number. Now I ask myself, is it 5 or more? Yes, it's a 5. So I add one more to this guy. So it becomes 15,473 and 900 thousandths. Now, these guys are zeros, so technically I don't have to write those, but I chose to do it just because, again, if I get into the habit of the circle becomes a 0, I'll never get it wrong. But because they are zeros, technically I wouldn't have to write them. I could just say this is 15,473 and 9/10. Okay, so again, it's very simple. If you remember 5 or more, add one more. 4 or less, let it rest. Okay, I'm going to do one example more. So I have 317 and 76 hundredths. Okay, now, as I mentioned in class, sometimes they won't tell you a place value. Sometimes they'll just say round to the nearest whole number. Now, if you remember from class, everything before the decimal is a whole number, and everything after the decimal is a decimal place value, right? So if I'm going to round to the nearest whole, I'm going to underline the ones, which is the first whole number place. I'm going to look next door to the right, I'm going to circle that number, and I'm going to ask myself, is that 5 or more? It's a 7, so indeed it is 5 or more, and that means I have to add one more to my underlined number. This becomes 318. Now again, I could write the decimal into 00, but because they are zeros, I don't need to. Now, to the nearest whole number, that number is 318. Pretty simple. Okay, well, once again, thank you for watching this video. If you have any more questions, make sure to comment below, and I will make sure to answer those in the next video. So, like the video, subscribe so that you never miss another episode.